Welcome to People Who Perform, the Real Estate Careers Podcast. Each episode will bring you conversations from business leaders and up-and-coming stars in the commercial real estate industry in Canada. Our guests will share their unique career journeys, passions, and advice on what it takes to be successful in this industry. This podcast is brought to you by Highview Partners, connecting people who perform in Canadian real estate.
I'm your host, Nicola Denning-Millar, and today I have the pleasure of connecting you with Susan Allen. Susan currently serves as president of BOMA Toronto and is responsible for the organisation's vision, mission, objectives, values and growth in order to enhance value for its members. She has over 20 years' experience in the commercial real estate industry, operating and managing award-winning flagship assets, which have included Brookfield Place and Toronto Eaton Centre, where she's led teams of over 150 people. Susan is a lifelong learner and holds an RPA designation, an MBA from Schulich Kellogg School of Management, and the ICD.D designation granted by the Institute of Corporate Directors in Rotman. She is an active member of the ICSC, sits on the Canadian Convention Planning Committee and the Advisory Council for the Real Estate Management Programme at Ryerson. She's also the proud recipient of numerous awards, including a Canadian TOBY of the Year and Earth Awards. A strong female leader, a passionate collaborator, a mentor, role model and friend to many in our industry, it is my pleasure to introduce Susan Allen. Susan, it is wonderful to have you join me today. So a very, very warm welcome to our Real Estate Careers podcast.
Great to be with you, and I appreciate the opportunity, so thank you.
So I make no secret of the fact that I'm a huge advocate for women in our industry. So to have you here today to share your story is amazing, because I know that you have a reputation for being a strong leader and a champion of change. And I know many people, particularly women, admire the contributions and the impact that you've had in your career so far. So I'm really excited to share your journey and your knowledge with our listeners, as I think it's really going to help motivate others to reach their goals as well. So let's start by going back to the early stages of your career, Susan, and I'm going to ask you a two-part question here. So what was your first job in real estate, and what valuable lessons did you learn that you're still applying today?
I'll just kind of throw in an interesting tidbit before I answer that one, because, a lot of people are surprised to learn that my first job was actually at the Toronto Blue Jays. So sports administration was my background, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. So, it's a cool little story, and I had a great, really fun 4 years there. As I tell people, I was fresh out of school. I knew nothing about pretty much anything. So, and then from there, I had always admired the commercial real estate industry. So I had my heart and mind set on that. And with that, I was really fortunate to get a job with Brookfield, which was at BCE Place, as it was known then. Brookfield Place, that is known now, of course. And so for me, it was probably a reverse of what most people experience in our industry, I would say. I didn't start at a smaller asset, an older asset, B-class asset. My very first job was in BC. So it was the newest, shiniest, biggest A-class asset in the city. And so that was really cool. And I think for me, it probably framed the rest of my career in terms of, always having a really high standard level for everything.
And I think as well, those kind of high expectations that they would have had probably helped you really raise your game pretty much immediately. Yeah,
it was, as you point out, it was a necessity. I guess now that I'm looking back at it now, probably framed and forged the whole tenant services manager positions. So we started calling ourselves that, many years ago at BCE Place. And when I was recruited to join Cadillac Fairview and was at the TD Centre, we set up the tenant services framework there, which still exists today and in many properties. So it was kind of a cool thing to see for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's great to hear that you strategically decided to join real estate. In fact, most people that I've been speaking with, I would say that they fall into our industry. Why do you think that is?
That's a great question, and one that we ask a lot among ourselves. I mean, certainly in BOMA, for us, a big focus has been and continues to be working with all of the universities and other schools that have programs, because there's a lot now. Schulich, Rotman, Queens has a program, Guelph-Humber has a program, Ryerson has a program, and a retail program. So it's really just about getting out there and educating, because the reality is, you're right. And if they do want to go into the commercial real estate industry, it's typically in a broker or leasing position, because that's, I think, a preconceived kind of sexy job, if you will. So we've at BOMA created a student membership, and we have a really robust young professional committee. We have probably close to 150 young professionals now, and they're really engaged. That allows us to really educate them and their friends and their peers to really just spread that word. I mean, we're getting more traction now, but there's still a ton to be done. And honestly, the best way is to really get on the ground and visit the schools. We do that a bit now. I wish we had the time to do it a whole lot more, because I, like a lot of people, worry about who's going to be leading our industry.
That's a great point right there, Susan. I mean, one of the reasons that we started this podcast was to educate and promote the career paths available in the commercial real estate industry. And I've been recruiting in this space for 15 years, and it's always been a pressing issue. And I know that a lot of leaders share your worry, who is going to be leading our industry in 10, 20 years' time. So I think it's really important that we all collaborate and do our part to help attract people into the industry. So I know that you've predominantly managed large Class A office and retail assets, including Brookfield Place and Toronto Eaton Centre. What's been your favourite asset class to manage, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, that's another good question. Honestly, I grew up in office. I would say that to a large degree, retail is similar in the operations piece of the business, but I think the tenants are different. They just have, their priorities are different. They're a different, usually, type of person. The business is generally the same. I don't know. Like I love both, and I really feel very fortunate to have substantial experience in both asset classes. So I would really encourage everyone out there to see if you can do that. I mean, even a lot of our assets today are mixed use with significant retail on the bottom. I just think it's a great career builder to have experience in both.
I agree. So there's no denying the positive impact of professional development in order to excel in one's career and stay relevant, particularly in real estate where, the world is ever changing. Can you share some of the ways in which you've invested in yourself to ensure that you learn and you grow and that ultimately you stay on top of your game?
That's really important. And earlier in my career, I probably wasn't the best at that. Because you're busy, you're doing a million things, you don't have a lot of time. And I remember, like, my husband would always say to me, put yourself first, make sure that you're doing that. He was right. It's tough to do that because everyone's time's dropped. And, I've been there, I get that. But I think that, for me, doing my RPA, a bunch of other courses, obviously, in the gap, and I made a decision that was right for me, that I could take a career sabbatical to do my MBA, which is something I had always wanted to do, but I wouldn't have been able to have the time or I don't think the capacity to do both in my role at the Eaton Centre. So I really think that's a key piece. You must take the time to take professional development courses. There's so much out there from all of the universities and or colleges. I know Harvard has some really cool online things, and I would suggest that it's always a good investment in yourself. If there's something you want to do, from personal experience, like, it just makes you more well-rounded. You expand your network, you meet people, you have additional skills. It's just always a good thing to do.
So, I mean, obviously you touched on the fact that you got your MBA. I mean, in terms of the skills that you developed during obtaining that MBA, both professionally and personally, how do you feel that they've benefited your career and really enhanced your life?
Going back to do that, a little later in life, for me, it was a huge challenge and a real sense of accomplishment after I had finished. So many reasons, both from a personal perspective, from a business perspective, tons of different things I could talk about. But I think one of the biggest things was doing things like that is a real confidence builder. When you do things that, you find challenging and interesting and frankly a little scary at times, and that can be anything. It doesn't have to be an MBA. It could be whatever you're taking. I think that's a huge piece that you get from that is the confidence that it builds. I mean, the skills that you pick up, those are the obvious things. I think it just broadens your capacity to feel confident about what you can do, going out of your comfort zone, if you will.
Absolutely. And, they say that that's where the magic happens. And I think it's just having that sense of accomplishment and feeling really proud of yourself afterwards, because it's not easy. I've had friends who have, taken on doing their MPA to advance their career. And it's not just the complexity of the work, it is the volume. That was one of the biggest challenges for friends of mine doing a full-time job. Obviously for you have the challenge of managing an enormous A-class property and big teams. But then it's just managing life. Weekends aren't your own, your evenings aren't your own, trying to sort of maintain a healthy, well-balanced life. That's what I've heard is challenging more than anything. It's the sheer volume.
Absolutely. Like some days, I'll be honest, like I have some really very good friends from school, in the 18 months. And, honestly, I probably had to walk most of them off the ledge and vice versa. And these are bright, capable people with jobs. But it's to your point. I mean, it's crazy what people go through. And yeah, that's a big part of it. The volume, a big part.
And then reminding yourself halfway through that you're doing it voluntarily.
Exactly. Well, I'm paying all this money to put myself. Yeah. I think a lot of us ask that question at some points.
So you're currently in the position of president at BOMA Toronto, and you've held that position, I believe, since 2014. So I want to ask you what you enjoy most about your job. But first of all, perhaps you can start by sharing a little bit more about what it is you do, what you're responsible for, just to help our listeners understand what the objectives of that role are.
Sure. I'm responsible for ultimately the strategy, the operations of BOMA Toronto, the team, all of the outputs, branding, marketing, that type of things. That is mine to lead. I really have such an amazing team that I would not be here, and certainly BOMA would not be what it is today without the amazing people that I have the pleasure to work with every day, because they're, motivated and dedicated. We all have really high expectations of ourselves. So, when we get the comments that people say, I can't believe you only have 9 people. And so to us, it's just, this is what we do, right? And it's a huge team effort there for sure.
So it's my understanding as well that you're the first female president. How did you feel stepping into that role? I mean, did you have any fears or worries about how you'd be received? Did you experience pressures that you'd not felt before? I mean, I'm just really interested to know how that was stepping into that role.
I didn't even think about any of that at all, and just to step back, I had been involved with BOMA for quite some time. I was on the board. I chaired the award committee. I've done judging at all levels. So when I was doing my MBA, I was chairing the board. The opportunity came up, and it was not something that I honestly thought about, in terms of what I was going to do. Would that be lead BOMA? So for me, it was just, a bit of a natural transition, I would say. I guess because I was already on the board and there were some very strong women leaders on the board, which was really amazing to work with them. So I honestly didn't think about it in that frame. And, I've had Marianne McDougald, who runs, First Capital's Canadian operations. She was our chair for many years. And Karen Sweet was our chair-elect before she, transitioned out of the industry. Currently, Nada Sudik from Quadrille is our chair. And we have interestingly, our last 2 young professional ex officio board members have been female. So we have Natalie Priso that just joined us from Northern. It's really cool and fun. And, there's a lot of great women in our industry. I love talking to young women who are early in their career, and I have all the time in the world for that, and my door is always open, and I've had some really great conversations with them. I guess I would say we chat about things that I wish I might have done would I have done a little differently, or would I have done more of this or less of that? And so, any way that I can help, even if it's just a conversation, I'm always really pleased to do that.
Now, you've alluded to the fact that your role or the success of your role is quite dependent on the people who you're surrounding yourself with. So what would you say are some of the most important personal characteristics that you look for when hiring into your team?
Everyone talks a lot about this. I would say attitude, humility, really good communication skills, someone who takes initiative, who is upbeat. We've all hired people that perhaps, didn't have 100% of the skill set that we wanted. However, we saw in their personality someone that we knew would be a good fit with the rest of the team. For me and for BOMA, that's critical because we have a small but mighty team. And so, getting that right mix is just essential. And I often joke with my team to say, like, not now, obviously, but before, we spend so much time together that, and sometimes we agree to disagree, but that's okay. That just makes us better. But I think that there's such a level of trust and respect. We like each other and like creating things together. So it's pretty fun.
Would you like to join an industry association that develops, promotes, and advances best management practices? The Building Owners and Managers Association, known across the industry as BOMA, provides members with access to exceptional education programs and events and valuable networking opportunities. The Toronto members include leading building owners, property and facility managers, developers, and industry suppliers. To learn more about the association and how you can become a member, visit bomatoronto.org.
I'd like us to now touch on your passion, that really sort of intense desire and enthusiasm that drives you to achieve something and take action. So inside of your job, what is it, Susan, that puts that fire in your belly and sustains that strong determination to succeed?
I think for me that I realized early on the opportunity that BOMA has to really contribute to the industry. For me, I often say to people, like, it doesn't really feel like a job to me because it's such a cool thing that I'm doing, and I have such a great team, and the board is so amazing all the time. The opportunity to really make an impact and make things better. And we have such a great collaboration with RealPAC, NAIOP, Crew, ULI that we're doing a bunch of different things with. And the cohesive group there is really a powerful voice for different advocacy things. And, during COVID-19, University Health Network needed PPE and different things and space. And we were able to come together as a group and, drive that for them. So things like that are really gratifying, particularly now when we're all grappling with COVID-19 and everyone has different challenges and different things to deal with at home with, babies and maybe older parents, and you with your twins, like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. I think now more than ever, our industry needs to be out there to help as much as we can. And, look, all of our members, are so many of them doing such really cool things in their communities that it's been really great to see. And, obviously we're still in the middle of it. All of us, I think, are learning different things every day about the disease and what the symptoms are and, second waves and what that looks like. And should we wear a mask, not wear a mask? There's a lot of information out there, but I think for me and for our team and with everyone else, obviously, people's personal safety is the top priority. And, I hope that people, when they're solidifying and thinking about their return to work plans, that they are, doing that with empathy and with the ability for people to, have a choice if they feel, really uncomfortable coming back, because a lot of people take the subway, the GO train. Yeah, we just need to be really empathetic, I think, to how people are feeling now.
So you touched earlier on about how rewarding you find it to drive success. Mm-hmm. So in your opinion, what does it take to be a great leader? Like, what are some of the characteristics of a great leader to you?
That's a great question. And, I would say that all leaders are always learning, for one. It's really up to all leaders to, I think, to earn the respect of people around them, not just expect it. I think good leaders really have to care about people, care about their teams, and while still driving excellence. Leaders are humans, right? We're all human. We make mistakes. Maybe we made the wrong call on this and that. And I think creating an atmosphere where people feel comfortable that, look, we all make mistakes, me included, many of them. And, you want people to feel comfortable doing that, because I think that, you do a lot of great work, and that's how you really learn from those moments. So for all of those, I think we really need to be able to listen and understand that everyone has different viewpoints. Everyone is motivated from a different way, all of those types of things. And I think being well-read about different things and trying to understand things from a different point of view are all, I would say, good things to have and to work on.
So in terms of creating a work environment that your employees find motivating, what have you done?
We've done a couple things. We try to do things together that are fun outside of work. I think that that's an important piece, and we try not to talk about work and what's going on in your life and what fun things are you doing, et cetera, et cetera. Like Misha, our manager, got a little puppy, and we were on our go-to-meeting call on Monday. She was kind of like show and tell with this little puppy that's 3 pounds. She was just adorable. We try to do things like that are fun. We've done, escape rooms, that type of thing, celebrate birthdays. We do those little things. And I think that I've tried to be as flexible as I can with respect to people taking time off when they need it, that type of thing. I don't think ever having an environment where you got to punch a time clock is a very motivating thing. And I hope that people feel very comfortable suggesting new ideas and different things like that. And I also think thanking people, making sure they know that their efforts are appreciated, is huge. I mean, I really love when we have our board meetings and we have all of my senior people giving their presentations, and, for the board to see that and for me to acknowledge what an amazing job they did with them, it really makes a huge difference. So I think it's all of those things, and making sure that you're continuing to challenge people in a way that they are comfortable with.
I think motivation is such a powerful energy to sort of drive and excite employees. So I think it's really vital, that leaders are constantly asking themselves, what motivates not just the workforce, but this workforce, because obviously that can change as people come and join, an organization. So I think if you're proactive in evaluating and learning new ways to motivate your staff, you're going to ensure that they give their best performance to both you and the company. We're going to switch gears a little bit here, as I'd like to ask a few questions just sort of surrounding reflection and health. So if you could go back and give your younger self, one piece of advice, what do you think that would be, Susan?
I would actually give 2 pieces of advice. I would tell my younger self to network more. It's not an easy thing to do, and I, by nature, am probably more of an introvert. When I was younger, that was uncomfortable for me, and I didn't do that. So I would suggest that's really important. And secondly is you take the initiative to find a mentor for yourself and then leverage that relationship. I mean, I've had, lots of amazing leaders in my life, but I would say to my younger self is take the initiative to find yourself a mentor and then nurture that relationship. I think it's critical.
I love that. It's about being proactive and being a participant in your own learning and development, not sitting around expecting people to approach you. And how wonderful it is to actually be approached about mentoring someone as well. Now, we've all got busy lives, and I know obviously yours is no exception. I'm always keen to know how other people find calm when their life sort of gets out of balance, and it invariably does. What steps do you take to keep your mind and body in good working order?
Well, I think for me, I've always been athletic, and I swam competitively for many years when I was younger, and then swam masters even up to 8 years ago. So for me, it's about that, being competitive while it's swimming or doing anything else. And that is what kind of clears my mind. I think the other thing too is if you can get lost in something, whether it's a book or if it's a movie, that's really important too. And that clears your head of kind of the moment stuff and allows you just to, I think, relax again and then attack things from a different and a more calm frame of mind.
I mean, it's well documented, isn't it, that a healthy mind breeds a healthy body and vice versa. One of my favorite quotes actually is from Buddha. It's about the power of the moment right now. And it goes, the secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn the past, not to worry about the future, not to anticipate troubles, but to live in the present moment wisely and earnestly. And I love it. It's simple and yet it's so powerful. And I think more than ever in this really chaotic world that we live in, and especially now, it's just so important to find that balance and to breathe and to really appreciate where you are and the beautiful things around you.
That's so true. It's so true. And I think, for most of us, there will be some incident that makes us kind of shake our head, and then you get back on kind of that treadmill again. Honestly, I think we all probably spend too much time thinking about, could we have done something differently? I think that, myself included for sure, to keep that top of mind, because I think that's good advice for sure.
Absolutely. Well, if it works for Buddha, I think it can work for us. When you look back one day over your career, what do you think you'd like to be remembered for? What would you want your legacy to be?
I think that I would like to be thought of as someone who perhaps helped the industry in some small way to be a little better. I would love to have motivated or inspired more, young females to grow and to achieve in our industry. I think that would be pretty cool. If I could be remembered as someone who, really cared about teams and people on a personal level, that would make me feel good.
Wonderful. Now, we've touched on the global pandemic, and obviously our industry is facing a multitude of challenges at the moment. And so I'd be remiss not to bring this subject up and ask you a few extra questions. In your opinion, how is COVID impacting our industry right now? And how is BOMA adding value in these times?
We're starting to, as everyone has seen, a little bit of opening with street front retail already in the Bay, ironically on Queen Street. Toronto Eaton Centre is opening actually tomorrow for the first time. So buildings have been operating, but obviously without tenants or people. All of the people who work in our industry have been working. A lot of them have been working shifts. So it's not been full-on job. However, the preparation that has been going on to prepare to return to work has been incredible. With BOMA, both BOMA Toronto, BOMA Canada, other organizations out there in terms of providing guidance for a return to work, the communications have had to be very clear about just so many things, legislative things, regulatory things, people things, webinars for a myriad of so many topics. Security and cybersecurity is certainly a concern, and that grows with technology, and particularly now when everyone is using technology. BOMA Toronto has a CIRMAC committee, which is a Security Risk Management Advisory Council. So we have been extremely active in terms of, driving what's been happening during COVID from a security and life safety point of view, and then also on a return to work. What does that look like? It is when you think about things in a big asset, say you're in Toronto Eaton Centre and someone is sick and they have a heart attack or something like that, the dynamics of how everyone's going to respond to different situations in light of the COVID environment now, everyone has to rethink things like that. to provide protective gear for their employees. It's think about all of the touch points into a building, the elevators, the escalators, the washrooms, the common areas, the lobby, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have a path connection, which actually connects 70 private properties, believe it or not. So BOMA Toronto has a return to work committee, and a big focus of ours now is on the path connected properties. Right now, it is operating on reduced hours and not open on the weekend, but that's a huge piece that we're tackling now. And we're working really closely with the city of Toronto. Everyone has probably heard that Toronto has a rebuild committee. There's a doctor on that, Eileen DeVilla, who's the Toronto public health doctor. There's that piece of, are we going to get any more best practices and or directives, et cetera, et cetera. And then transportation, right? When people are coming in, how is a TTC going to their best of the ability so that at least people have a comfort level with getting on?
Pandemics seem to always sort of serve as a catalyst, don't they, for technology? So, in terms of smart technologies, how do you feel they can help firms fight COVID, but also protect us against other pandemics in the future?
It's an interesting question because there's been a huge technical disruption in our industry anyway. We've been, as you mentioned before, I think, just thrown into this technology in a week. Everyone's kind of going along, and then, we're all not working and we're remotely. So I think that the next year or two will probably, garner a lot of learnings from a technology point of view, from a cyber point of view. I think that's a real concern because, no one even with a crystal ball could have anticipated that every single person was working from home. Systems just aren't built like that. And, there's lots of people in the dark web just waiting for opportunities. So I think that in the next year or two, probably we'll see, new technologies that with luck will protect us. Nothing obviously is going to prevent anything, but I think, anything we can do to protect us more robustly, I think will be important moving forward.
I know BOMA obviously assembled a task force of real estate professionals to develop these best practice guidelines. Mm-hmm. My question to you is, how difficult has that been to develop? Were there any blueprints in place to anticipate this kind of pandemic? Or have you been working completely from a blank slate?
I think to a large degree, a blank slate. Obviously, there's always emergencies that happen in properties, whether it's fire, whether it's something happened on a floor and you have to evacuate the building and or been an assault, whatever that is. So there was that. But honestly, I don't think, no one did have a playbook for we're going to have a global pandemic and every single person can't work. Right. And every store is closed and all of that. I think it's been a bit piecemeal with the emergency and business continuity plans. And, people did have pandemic plans to a certain degree, but I think it's now just been pulling all of those. And so the next time that it happens, we've got playbooks and we have pathways and we have guides now, it should be much easier the next time. Hopefully there's not, knock on wood, a next time, but when and if there is, there'll certainly be a more robust playbook. And perhaps I'm just, on a personal perspective, what I've seen go on at, long-term care homes has just been so devastating. And, wow, I wish that public health or someone would have known that would have been the case because it's been such a tragedy and opportunities come. And so hopefully governments will come together and pay the people who work, as vital pieces of that whole cog better so that they don't have to work 3 jobs and all of that type of thing. Hopefully at least some good will come out of it from there. But I think it's just been such a tragedy, that whole piece of it. It's,
I completely agree. It's quite remarkable to me, though, how our industry, well, not just our industry, all Canadian industries have responded so quickly, in terms of, adaptability and flexibility and really just the resilience of Canadians, because this has literally turned our world upside down. And I think if there was any words that really encompass for me how everyone has responded, it is resilience.
There's been so many amazing stories of just everything from, to your point, of companies who can't sell their product to switch to make shields, or, high school kids sewing masks and all of these things. And you would think that with the, University Health Network, that they would never have a need for PPE and for masks and for different things. And as an example, what we found was that they had a huge need. And so they were kind of sending help signals out to all of our organizations. And then we realized that we were all getting the same request and came together. And so we were able to help them. But before that, if someone would have told me that UHN would be short on PPE and places to put them and areas to store them, you would have said, oh, come on, like how could that ever possibly happen in Toronto? But it did.
So I heard on a webinar the other day, the VP of Asset Management was saying that with regards to office space, the emphasis is now going to be on the promotion of security and health and wellness as opposed to people's comfort. Do you have any thoughts around that?
I think safety, people's comfort, they're always going to be paramount. I'm not sure that there's going to be a huge shift in that now, and for the next little while, we really have to kind of frame everything in a COVID-19 environment. And so as long as that's with us, I think that both of those things, the security of the people and their comfort, safety, et cetera, are going to be really paramount.
Now, I know that you don't have a crystal ball, Susan, but from the conversations that you've been having amongst various leaders, what is the general consensus on how quickly our industry is going to recover?
Yes, we all wish we had that crystal ball. I would say that, and I guess everyone would say that retail has been, obviously more heavily impacted. I think that most people would say as well is that we're fairly confident about the balance of 2020, although, many people, including, not-for-profits, have taken a huge hit for sure. But I think the bigger unknown piece is going to be 2021. When these stores start to open again, how quickly can they recover? We've already seen some go out of business and some large ones, not just small. And so restaurants, are they going to come back? Will they ever come back with the same amount of people? We just don't know. I mean, we don't know what the model will be. That's something we're all just going to have to keep watching, keep looking. And I think in our organization anyway, we really need to be creative, agile, nimble, be able to pivot when necessary, be flexible in terms of how we run our business, because no one knows where we'll be, let's just say a year from now.
And also it's hard to predict because you don't know what the need is going to be. Are people going to want to go into stores? Are people going to want to eat in restaurants? So I guess time will tell. In the last chapter of this podcast, we're going to sort of offer up some advice for our listeners. So I'm going to ask you for some pearly words of wisdom here. So first of all, what pieces of advice would you give someone who's thinking of starting a career in real estate or that's at the beginning of their career in real estate?
I would say, I think as I mentioned before, get experience in the retail side, get experience in the office side. I've seen a lot of our young people starting out as property administrators. Great place to start. Even doing a stint in accounting at a property is huge. I mean, these buildings that are worth millions and billions of dollars, our GMs are running a business, and getting to really understand the basics of how a building operates. Take your own time to spend with your building operators. I mean, that's just critical. There are courses to do. Obviously, there's RPA, there's facility courses with the FMA. But I think taking the opportunity to learn the basics, and if you have to do that on your own time, I would say that's a time very well spent.
And there's nothing like seeing it in reality, going around a building with a building operator, pointing out and asking your questions as you go along. For someone who's looking to raise their game inside the industry, what would be your advice there?
There's a couple things. I think that volunteering at one of the organizations, whether it's CREW, NAOP, BOMA, ULI, is a really great opportunity. You expand your network. You will have the ability to learn. You could maybe chair a committee. That really helps. You just see people, right? You build your network, and I think it elevates you in your company too. I mean, companies love to say that, this person is chair of BOMA Toronto, or they're, chairing a committee at NAOP or CREW or whatever that is. I think that that's really important. A lot of people, when they're younger and they're starting their career, don't want to do that as much because it takes up a lot of time. But I would say, again, that's time really, really well spent. And I would also suggest on the education piece, set out a plan that at least you're doing something. If you're not doing it every year, then once every couple of years, and put yourself first. Do some research about, what makes sense, your interest, point of view, etc. I mean, a lot of people in our industry that are senior, they really are so open to people calling them and saying, hey, I'd love to take you to lunch and just pick your brain type of thing. So really have to be proactive, I believe, have your game plan mapped out.
I love how you've put the emphasis on networking, because so much hiring in our industry happens through referrals. I mean, where we come in as a business, it's usually if it's time sensitive or if it's confidential or very hard to fill. But I think it's really important for people to know that you should really build those relationships, because that is how a lot of people elevate their careers. That's great advice, Susan. Thank you so much for joining me today. I mean, you've shared your time, your knowledge, your perspective on a number of diverse and interesting topics. I know it's going to be really valuable to those who are listening in. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for listening to People Who Perform, the Real Estate Careers podcast brought to you by Highview Partners, a talent search and recruitment firm focused exclusively on Canadian real estate. If your real estate team is looking to find the best next hire, or if you're ready to make the best next move in your career, then reach out to Highview Partners today. Follow us on LinkedIn and visit us at highviewpartners.ca.